that is a family member of mine, and that was my grandfather. He was one of the first, well, he was the first licensed black boat captain here in Miami-Dade County. And he ran a boat that took people from the Keys to the various islands all over in the area of the Bahamas, Bimini, Nassau, and the Caribbean, back and forth from Miami. He also took passengers from Miami over to Virginia Key, the black passengers. Let me forward the slides. We'll be talking about the Lyric Theater in a moment. But to finish up, that was segregation in the ocean, okay? There was segregation even in death. Now, what I mean by that, many of you may be aware that there's the oldest cemetery in Miami. It's called the City of Miami Cemetery. It's located on Northeast 2nd Avenue and 18th Street. And in that cemetery, you will find buried, and they used to do tours of the cemetery. I think they still do that. Paul George, Dr. George, takes people through the cemetery. You will see the graves of Julia Tuttle. You'll see the graves of Mary Brickell. You'll see the graves of John Sewell, some of the important people that were instrumental in the founding of Miami. Now, that graveyard is segregated in that you have blacks which are buried in the southeast section only. That's the only place a black person could be buried. You have Jewish people who were buried in the northwestern section of the cemetery. Only Jewish people could be buried there. The rest of the cemetery is where the white Protestant American Anglo-Saxons are buried, such as Brickell, Sewell, Julia Tuttle, and people of that area. Just as a side fact, I'd like to mention that that my mother was one of the last people to be interned in that cemetery. Both my great-grandmother and great-grandfather, because of their history as a pioneer in Miami, and they were all buried in that segregated section of the cemetery. At this point, I'd like to pause because I have my sister here, and she sits on the board of directors of the Black Archives and is instrumental in the revitalization of the Lyric Theater. I'd like to pause and invite her to come up to the microphone for a moment and just talk about the Lyric Theater and how it's been brought back to life here in the modern era. Thank you, Patricia Byrne.
Good morning. Thank you for listening today about our history. This is our local Black history, and as chairperson with the Black Archives, one of the things we're trying to do is to preserve that history, because many people are new to Miami and they really don't know how many people came before them and the things they did. My brother mentioned that our family has been here since the late 1800s, and many of the men in our family were stonemasons. So many of the buildings, some of which still stand and are on the National Historic Archives, such as the Ward Rooming House, it still stands today. It has been restored due to the efforts of the Black Archives and the Lyric Theater, because that was considered an historic place, and our grandfather and great-grandfather were instrumental in building that building, among others, here in Miami-Dade. When you go through Overtown now, you see other historic places which will come up on the slides, and some of those have been preserved, once again, due to the efforts of the Black Archives. But that way we're able to keep some of our history still alive, although those who were very instrumental have gone on. In other cities, when you go, I know when I travel to other cities, it's always interesting to see some of the older buildings, hear the history of those buildings, learn who were those people. I'm also the family genealogist, so anytime somebody wants to know, well, how's that person our relative, I can usually go back and I'll go to my ancestry documents and I'll say, well, you know, that's our cousin on this side and that side. So therefore, my interest in the Black Archives is the same as my mother, who also served on the board of directors there. The Lyric Theater for many, well, it was the first entertainment house for blacks. It was built in 1913 by African American. And he built it because there was nowhere else for people to go for, of color to go for entertainment. So he built the Lyric Theater. I remember my mom talking about going there and watching movies. And you know, she was born in 1917. So the movies that she would watch as a child were silent movies, and they would play them there at the Lyric. If you're able to go by, and we do tours there of the Lyric Theater, you can see the actual building. It has been restored, you know, to historic standards. Some of the old chairs are still there. Of course, it's all been, you know, reupholstered. It's been, you know, done up in a way, but it has been used, and it's been in some music videos too. We've had some famous rappers and people rent the Lyric, take out everything, use it for however they want it, and put it all back together again. So it's a pretty interesting place, and we do every first Friday. We have what is akin to a gong show, and people win prizes, and the audience is the one who votes on, and it's called First Fridays, and they do Lyric Live, and people come up and they sing, they dance, they perform, things that people did back in, I think in the Harlem Renaissance days. And so we do that there, and it's very successful at that point. But the important part of what we do is preserving the history of Black Miami. Some of the things that my brother spoke about, that's what's there in the Black Archives. We actually have some monuments there that are a little bit scary. We have an actual Ku Klux Klan cross that was burned, and we have it there because people can't forget the past, or we dare repeat it. So we do have those things there so that you can see things that have happened in Miami, because we grew up here and we know of it. We know about the, you know, the color bathroom, white bathroom, and as a kid wanting to know what that was all about, and you know, different other things. You couldn't eat in restaurants. You could only go to the window and order. And one of the things, my father was from Jamaica. Well, he was not accustomed to any of that, because in Jamaica, everyone could go. It didn't matter what color you were. So to him, it was like culture shock. He's come to America, he marries his family, and all of a sudden he's told, you can't go there because of the color of your skin. So imagine, for him, this was terrifying. He just couldn't understand, how can people live like this? And you know, when it was explained to him, it's an entire country like this, it just was beyond imagination. Because the way he grew up in Jamaica, if you wanted something from the store, you went in, you tried it on, you purchased it. And I remember he would get at my mom if she bought something from Birdhouse, because he remembered the time when if you bought it, if you tried it on, you bought it. You could not, as Tony said, you could not return it. You had to keep it. So he very much was very upset about the whole Jim Crow situation. You want me to talk some more? I told him, don't give me a microphone. I'll stand up here and talk all day.
Thank you very much, Patricia. I'd like to pause at this time. I see we have joining us here one of our faculty members from Booker T. She has been very instrumental in moving this school to the level that it is now. Her name is Miss Cynthia Cowles. Ms. Cowles, would you please stand up and acknowledge the crowd? Thank you. As I said, Ms. Cowles has been very instrumental. She's our school counselor, but she does more than just counsel students at school. I've seen her counseling adults on occasion, but she's been very instrumental in moving that school. I believe when she first came, we were a D school, and we're now 3 points away from being a B school. So, thank you, Ms. Cowles, for joining us. As I wrap up this morning, I would like to extend an invitation. What my sister and I have done is we have brought some of our antique family heirlooms here today, and some of the source documents that I've used to prepare this presentation. I'd like to invite you all to join us. I think Mr. Blair has a special room set aside. We will display a christening gown that is over 123 years old. That's a part of our family history, has been passed down, and all of the female women in our family, starting from our grandmother,
Yes.
grandmother has been christened in this gown. And so we have that for display this morning. We also have the ship's manifest. I told you my grandfather was one of the only licensed black ship captains here in Miami-Dade County. We have his original ship manifest dated 1919, so this year it's 100 years old on display. So at this point, I'd like to wrap up, and I'd like to thank you all for being a very attentive audience and listening, and thank you for inviting us here this morning.
Mr. Jennings, you'll be in the pagoda if you want to talk with him more during 4A, and you guys are dismissed.